you shouldn't need to like get a PhD in AWS or GCP to figure it out. Just deploy it on our platform. We'll handle everything for you. And then like, hey, you get all this cool analytical data and security and all those things. And so that's kind of how we're building it out, is that we don't want to encroach into that space of app hosting, because then we're not a master of one. We're just like, okay, many things. And we're trying to like master this one problem of like, hey, APIs and the development space and protection and everything to do with that space kind of doesn't feel good right now for anybody. So let's simplify that and make it into a really good product that like does one thing really, really good. But because the tree is so big, we have a lot of space and a lot of product development to kind of grow into.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Modern Web Podcast. I am one of your hosts today. My name is Danny Thompson. I'm the director of technology at a company called This.Labs, and I'm joined with one of my co-hosts today, Mr. Adam Rackis himself. Adam, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm here, man. Background is different. Where are we at?
We're in upstate New York visiting some family, so I'm sorry for the lack of microphone. So you're going to have to deal with the MacBook Pro mic. So I hope it's not too terrible.
It sounds good to me.
All right.
And we are joined with a very special guest today, Mr. James Perkins, CEO of Unkey, a developer turned startup CEO. He's been killing it. And I've had the pleasure of knowing James now for like 4.5-5 years, give or take, off and on. It's been a while.
Yeah. It's got to be 5 years. Because it was we rode COVID out together, so it must have been at least 5 years, if not 6.
COVID was, if anything, a good way to make friends across the country that you probably never would meet. And we definitely met because we were definitely on different areas of the country, and it was pleasant to kind of get to know each other. It was amazing to see how the way that you kind of approached ideas. So I guess let's kind of start the show off. Why Unkey? Like, what ended up happening there to go from developer at an organization to jumping into Unkey? And now you've definitely been there for a while. So, I mean, things probably are on the up and up and looking well for you. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think, like, some background, so people who have never heard of me before or never seen anything I've done. Like, I've been in the industry 16 years now. So, you know, going on for almost 17 years. And so I've been in this space for a long time, and my first sort of 9 years was all back-end API development. That's all I did. And it sucked because like you spent a lot of time trying to get things deployed. You had to rely on a lot of people, and then you were worried about things afterwards. So like API keys is a great example. When we were building a lot of integrations, like we always thought, well, we could like tunnel between systems and everything would be fine. We won't have to worry about these kinds of things, which led into like problems that you have, right? And so Unkey kind of came around because I've been around for ages and API development hasn't really changed, right? So we have this API development platform that allows users to essentially either start off by securing their API with API keys, and these API keys come with a bunch of features. So you could have rate limiting on your API key, or you could have usage based. So let's say you give a key and it's on a free tier and they can only use it 10 times a month. Like you can issue that through Unkey. You can add keys that expire. So if you need to like give admins, or maybe it's an audit and they need access to an API, you can give it to them and then they expire after a specific date and they can no longer have access to those systems. So we built all these cool features. And the idea really is that like we're trying to get to the point where if you've never built a backend API and kind of productionized it and given it to the public, that we take away all the complexities and all you have to worry about is like, I'm building cool stuff and then I just put Unkey in front of it and then I deploy and boom, I'm done. And now I know it's secure and I've got all these cool analytic data that I can play around with and look at and see who my best users are or who's trying to abuse the platform. All those kinds of things you can look at in the dashboard without having to build them yourself. And that's really how it kind of started. And I kind of, you know, my co-founder Andreas was really the original idea came from him. We were working together separately in 2 different companies. I was at Clerk, he was at Upstash, and it really started as like a marketing project. So we were like, hey, let's build the pitch to me was like, hey, let's build like a blog series around how you could issue API keys to your users using these 2 products. and then we'll also offer a template, and then we kind of get all these benefits that people need. And then it was one of those core memory triggers of like, oh my God, I haven't done backend API development in forever. Does it still really suck in 2023? And the answer was yes, it's still really rough and tough. And so we're trying to simplify that as much as possible. And we've got features coming that, will make it even easier and kind of bring it down to the level of like how Vercel is today or Netlify is, where you just put, you can just use your product and instantly it's available for everybody to try out. And you've got this URL and you don't need to have all these complex setups to get an API running.
So what are some of the, I guess, challenges that you've overcome with this? But what are some of the engineering concerns that you've also built with this too? Because this doesn't seem like it's like a one and done, super easy, simple solution that you just implemented. There's definitely some thought that went into this. What did some of that even look like?
Yeah, so a lot of the big engineering problems come around like how do you scale, right? So like it's really easy if you've only got one location. Like, okay, it's in US East 1. That's really easy because now I only have to worry about one region in the world. And that's kind of how other API management platforms are built today. There's not many that are globally distributed. So the first thing that we wanted to build, right, was like, hey, we want this globally distributed, and we also need like global consistency. So we want it to be super, super fast, but we also need it to be accurate everywhere. So if an attack starts in, let's say, Texas, and then suddenly it's in Japan, but it's the same user, you need to know that, like, what have they already done in Texas? So we've built all these complex systems around that, and then being able to scale that to billions of requests a month, and allow that to happen. So that was like the first real problems that we kind of faced and like figured out. They're certainly not perfect. Like our scalability still has some tweaks that we're building right now for basically V2 of the API. And then on top of that, there's just a bunch of just regular challenges with like, how do you pick how to build it? Like what tech stack do you actually need to use for this product? How do you make those decisions? And then we made decisions and we kind of went back on them. Like in the original V0 of Unkey, the API was built with Go. And about, I want to say like 2 or 3 months in, we were like, oh man, we should just build this TypeScript and then like put it on serverless, and we'll kind of do like Lambda functions for everything. And that'll make it really easy and super scalable because they scale to 0 and they scale to 10 billion. And then we did that for a while, and then we realized we've made a mistake. We need to go back. So we ended up going back to Go and going back to servers. So this has changed, like the API has changed a number of times, and we've only been around since 2023. But now we're kind of settled. Like Go is good, servers are good. We should have done that in the first place and just scaled it up. But those were like this, it's that problem of how do you decide which one of these is best for your product? And sometimes it takes more than just like a month or 2 of testing and actually putting production data out there and seeing what happens. And it took a while for us to realize that like we had scaled outside of serverless. Like we'd gone to the point where serverless was just more painful than it was useful for our users and for us as well.
So for the listeners who are listening to us right now and maybe wondering about what Unkey is, it seems like it's kind of like a middleware for your existing APIs.
Yeah,
we'll add things like authentication and rate limiting. Is that about?
Yeah, that's a good kind of description of the core product that is today. So we essentially have a way for you to either basically create, update, delete, and verify keys on the API level. So you can issue those out to customers. And then the secondary part, we also have standalone rate limiting. So like if you have a web app and you need to rate limit a bunch of things inside your web app that doesn't need authentication, we also offer that as part of the product that still sits kind of in like a middleware to verify those requests and rate limit them as expected.
So like DDoS protection, or if you have some bad actors, you need to revoke an API key immediately.
All those things, and then on top of that, it's all globally consistent. So if an attack starts in America and then moves somewhere else, we still know that that's the same person, and we can still stop the attacks so that you kind of are safe regardless of how the attack starts and ends. But yeah, like that's the core product it is today. is very much that middleware things. We've got things coming that we're building right now that will shift the dynamic. So you can imagine if you took Vercel or Netlify and made a version for APIs where it's so easy to deploy, secure, and scale an API. Imagine that world where maybe you just typed in like Unkey deploy, and then suddenly you've got an API that you can now share with your best friend who's then maybe building the front end, or you're ready for production. You can kind of promote it into production so that you have like this workability from end to end. And we make that as easy as possible, and a bunch of security features are built in. So that's kind of like V2 of where we're kind of going with the product that we're building right now.
So I'll say this, I wrote Go for a couple of years. I'm a big fan of Go. There are a couple of pain points, but I think every language has like pain points in them. And I guess my question is, if you were to go off of the rhetoric of like social media, the whole world should be using Node as a backend, right? Mm-hmm. It seems like almost nobody else uses anything else. So why Go in this respect?
Yeah, I think it's like that funny social media problem, right? Where every user uses Next.js, and every user is, like everything should be written in TypeScript, and TypeScript's the future, and blah, blah, blah. Now, the reason that we picked Go was Andreas and I, we're now like a bigger team, but when we were originally around, like Andreas and I both knew Go and knew how well it scales and how simplified it is. So you can build really, really complex systems with Go and not have to have all these weirdness that comes with TypeScript. And on top of that too, we were like building a lot of stuff very quickly. So we picked Go because it was like, hey, we know this from end to end. We know that it can scale to the level that we want. We know we've learned all the hiccups and problems and things that you learn after years of experience. And so we really use that as like the indicator that we should use it. And we kind of shifted away back to TypeScript because we were like, oh yeah, we can hire more people if it's in TypeScript because everybody knows TypeScript, kind of like was the idea really. Along with like, hey, we can move really, really quickly, use serverless. And it came down to like, we were having to jump through a lot of hoops to make the code base work the way that we wanted to. There was a lot of like memory issues that we could run into, or there was these weird things with TypeScript shaping that we had to deal with that Go kind of natively handles. And then on top of that, we really wanted to like boil down our dependencies to basically nothing. And so that we can make it really, really easy to potentially, shift to another dynamic. If a new language came out that was like really flexible and had the power of Go and blah, 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 that we could take what we had and move it without having to worry so much about dependencies. You'll see, I think there's a really good blog post that we posted recently called, it's called Zen is the package name. And that was us basically building a thin wrapper around already things in Go to make our life easier and produce better error messaging and things like that. And that's kind of why we picked Go, because it's really easy to like build something out of nothing. And yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Go. I always have been, and I think it just sat right with us at the time. And the people we've hired have kind of agreed that like they really, really like Go. So it made it really easy for us to kind of scale the team.
I've heard nothing but good things about Go from people I respect. There is an angry contingent of immature devs on Twitter who hate Go, but you look at like serious people who build serious things, like all of Planet Scale's backend stuff is all Go based, and there's tons of other examples like that. It's a serious language for serious products, and one of these days I'm going to pull the trigger and just learn it.
I think in some aspects they were like, how can we create a language that does a lot of what we want with as little code as possible? And then there's like other areas where it's like, you better know every single error you're going to get because you need to explicitly solve all of them. So there's no, at least the last time I used it, I don't know if that's changed as of yet because I haven't touched it in a couple of years, but there's like no try catch that exists in Go the way that it does with JavaScript. And that was always my pain point because I'm like, I'm now having to figure out what the errors could potentially be. But I will say I did end up learning more about my product in that respect because now I'm thinking of every single edge case. It was my first true introduction into like pointers and memory allocation and things like that. So that was a good learning aspect as well. But I guess, you're, and this is not to downplay Unkey or anything in this regard, but when I think of API management, I feel like it's such a straightforward thing. But you just said like you've even expanded the team, and I'm like, this seems like such a big deal for API management. What are people seeing that the average person isn't thinking about? Especially from like, as a developer, I understand to a certain degree like why we would need stronger API tooling. But maybe even from like the business perspective, what are they not seeing? Or what are the things that they're starting to see now that like, oh, I have to have this in our tool set?
Yeah, so I think like API management as a whole always seems easy. It's like the same thing as auth, right? Where everyone's like, oh, auth is really easy. Like all you have to do is have like an email address and then magic link and then maybe Google OAuth and you're done, right? And the same in the aspect for us, like API keys isn't an incredibly complex product in the sense that like issuing API keys isn't. It's when you start to think about the other problems that come along with protecting APIs that it starts to get worse and worse. So you have to think about like rate limiting. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, but what happens if one organization needs like looser rate limits because they pay us $1 million a year? So now you have to think about like, okay, well now we have to introduce a way for us to override rate limits. Well, how do I do that? Well, now I have to think, now you have to like kind of rebuild your code to think about that. And then the next thing comes along, which is like, well, now we need to group all of the keys together that are owned by the same organization and then give them rate limits that are based upon what the organization is paying for. But we also want each individual key to have a rate limit. So now you've got like this next level of complexity. And then there's other things just in general. Like if you look at what API management is, you've got things like gateways that essentially funnel traffic and route traffic, which is kind of what we're building right now. But you look at those in the industry and it starts to really become a problem for bigger companies. I think a good kind of example of that is we have a company called Fireworks on our platform. If you don't know who they are, they're one of the biggest AI inference companies currently. Basically, the way that they work is you can basically sign up for them and then you can choose any kind of model and use that model. And the idea is that you can basically build APIs around that. And so they were a reasonably big company when they came to us, and they were using Google Apigee as their platform of choice. And essentially their idea was, hey, we want to issue API keys, but we also want to protect our API from abuse. So we need these two factors. The biggest problem that we're running into now is we have scaled to billions of requests a month, and our single instance that Google Apigee gives us isn't enough to handle all of this traffic. We've tried to replicate API like these gateways across the globe to try and reduce the latency, but we're at the point now where we're doing so much traffic that it just doesn't work anymore. We get more failures. We're having all these problems because we can't route all of the traffic correctly. We need to verify these keys, and that takes 200, 300, 400 milliseconds because we're going across the globe. Like, how can we do that with your platform? And because we're already globally distributed and we've already thought about what the modern web looks like today versus what it looked like 20 years ago, we can now give these users the ability to be like, yeah, just create all the API keys that you need, verify it with this one request, and your latency will be like 20 milliseconds. And you can add that to your service latency, and you can do 1 billion requests in a day, and it makes no difference to us. But yeah, that's kind of the long way around saying there's just like the beginning of API management is a very small trunk, but once you get out there, there's branches and leaves, and it goes on forever and ever and ever. And very much like auth is today, where like you start with maybe OAuth, and then, well, now I need passkeys, and now I need authorization, and now I need this and that, and the third, and and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it becomes one of those sort of maintenance time sink for developers, which then in cost businesses hundreds of thousands of dollars because you've got to pay one guy to maintain your auth system. It's very similar in the API management where you need a team of 2 or 3 to manage the entire system from end to end.
We'll get back to the conversation in a second, but first, a word from our sponsors. This episode is proudly sponsored by This.Labs, your partner in modern web development and consulting. At This.Labs, we specialize in empowering businesses to reach their full potential through technology. We understand that in today's fast-paced tech environment, adaptability and efficiency are crucial. That's why we offer tailored solutions designed to meet your unique challenges and objectives. And our commitment to excellence and client success sets us apart as a trusted advisor in the industry. Discover how This.Labs can transform your business. Visit this.co to learn more about our services and how we can help you stay ahead in the competitive landscape. Thank you to This.Labs for sponsoring this episode and for their dedication to advancing the developer community. Now back to the episode. Adam, go ahead.
We did it. Hey, James, I'm really loving this product from what I'm seeing. So it seems to be all about managing APIs. There's always going to be an app attached to that API. Do you guys have any plans to like expand and do app hosting as well? So you can just be a one-stop shop for your whole stack?
No. That's the short answer. But there's a long answer. So not really. Yes, there will always be an app sort of attached to this product, but we've found over the years, at least usually how we're finding productionized APIs is that they're entirely separate from their application, and they're usually like hosted on something like GSP or AWS or something like that, and less like of your traditional kind of stuff. Maybe they're hosted on Cloudflare. It might be a serverless world. And so, like, there's no real plans to, like, get into app hosting. Like, we already see the titans in the space, right? We all know who is the like, you know, you look at the Netlifys, the Cloudflare, the Vercels, and then even, like, Coolify or any of the other ones that kind of pop up that are pretty big and have, like, this dedicated space. What we're trying to do is carve that other side of that, which is, like, hey, like, it shouldn't be as complex as it is to host an API. Like, you shouldn't need to, like, get a PhD in AWS or GCP to figure it out. Like, just deploy it on our platform. We'll handle everything for you. And then, like, hey, you get all this cool analytical data and security and all those things. And so that's kind of how we're building it out, is that we don't want to encroach into that space of app hosting, because then we're just like, we're not a master of one. We're just like, okay at many things. And we're trying to like master this one problem of like, hey, APIs and the development space and protection and everything to do with that space kind of doesn't feel good right now for anybody. So let's simplify that and make it into a really good product that like does one thing really, really good. But because the tree is so big, we have a lot of space and a lot of product development to kind of grow into.
So this is a serious tool for serious production, globally distributed, resilient, reliable, constant uptime, SLA APIs. This is not for some indie hacker with 12 users. You are... Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. We're talking, you know, we process billions of requests a month. We're not, you know, we're not just doing like a handful. We're doing billions of requests a month with exceptional uptime and big protection, DDoS protection, way for us to audit log everything. So yeah, we're like a very serious shop with some serious goals, and we have some serious clients that like if we were down for, you know, 2-3 minutes, it would be a problem for them.
If any indie hackers are offended at my comments, send your hate mail to Danny Thompson. He will
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I could always use more of that, I guess. Well, I guess, you know, I know James when James was only really focused on developing at a company and then like building some content on the side, building out great YouTube videos and really trying to share value there. And it's just kind of interesting from, at least from my perspective, since I know James, seeing this ascension, right? Going from developer and making videos to now still making videos, but then running an entire organization. And so it's pretty interesting. So like, is there a content strategy with Unkey, or is the focus like you're just going to continue making videos on your own to kind of share value where you can? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we kind of treat Unkey as like an extension of my own personal brand anyway. Over the years, like I've done a lot of working with companies to grow out that like content strategy. And the biggest issue that you usually run into is that developers are kind of fickle. And they're not very trustworthy. So like if you're just like a logo for a company, developers don't really trust you that much. But like if you're a face or a brand, you get a lot more trust. Like we spend a lot of time like on Twitter and Blue Sky and other places like promoting Unkey in some way or another. But we're not doing like direct like company like YouTube videos. We're not building like company Twitch channels or anything like that. We spend a lot of time writing blogs that sit on the company site, but a lot of our marketing is very much like developer focused, developer first, where it's more about what Andreas and I and even other people at our company are talking about, less about like, oh, we need like a solid content strategy where we're like producing super high quality videos on an Unkey channel and things like that. So we've kind of built this like, I even wrote a blog post called "How We Do Marketing at Unkey," because we were like went down this really untraditional route of like picking people that we wanted to advocate the product, spending time making YouTube videos and Twitch streams and appearing on podcasts and all those kinds of fun things that I like to do as part of our content strategy, and it's worked really well for us. Like we did a lot of traffic over the last sort of 18 months, almost 2 years now, I guess, and it's just been like natural stuff that I think people appreciate or we think would actually hit with the development world. And that's gone really, really well for us.
Okay. So, I saw something that you said online, at least when I was researching, some new info about Unkey and things like that. And one thing that I saw was like customer obsession. Like, a lot of companies kind of say that. It's definitely a term that I've heard quite a bit. But like, how do you, I guess, make others also feel obsessed with your customers? Like it's such a crazy term at times to think about, but like where do you cultivate that? Like how are you maintaining that? What are you doing as quote unquote the boss to make others feel that way?
Yeah, so like it's interesting. We're like customer obsessed, but we're also this, how to explain it? We're an open company, I think is the best way to put this. So like everything that happens at the company, our entire team knows about. So there's no secrets. Even like what I send to investors, my guys have and girls have access to, right? They can just like pull it up. And every single email that comes through that like support email goes into our Slack channel. So like there is like this constant churn of like information about the company and what we're doing as a company and how we're doing as a company and what are the problems of the company and what do our customers see and what do our customers hate and what do our customers love. Like all that stuff is built into Unkey. And so like when you kind of join Unkey, there's this expectation that you may not love Unkey. Like you may not love Unkey as much as I love Unkey or Andreas loves Unkey. But if you're going to work for the company, you're going to hear about all the good, the bad, the ugly, and anything that's in between. And if you just want to sit there and just type on your keyboard and that's all you want to do all day, Unkey is not for you. Like it's just not for you because we're very much obsessed with every single customer, whether they're paying us $0 or they're paying us $2,000 a month. Like every single one of those people matter. And so everyone gets treated the same. It doesn't matter if you have a $100,000 contract with us or you have a $0 contract with us. We spend our time making sure that every email gets answered super, super quickly. Even if we don't have the answer, we'll just be like, hey, like we got your email. We're looking at it right now. We'll get back to you ASAP. Same in our Discord, same thing. As soon as like a Discord support message comes in, one of our team is in there like, hey, we've got your message, looking at it right now. I'll get back to you. And because we're an open company and because we're open source, like we get this twofold. So like we also get all of our contributors and all of the people that love the project are also obsessed and customer obsessed. So if a customer happens to be in our Discord and asks a question, if for whatever reason nobody's online at Unkey, which is really unusual because we're across the globe, somebody from our contribution will probably chime in and be like, hey, like the team is, like the team usually comes on in like a couple hours. They can probably help you out, but also here's some advice. And like that kind of plays out as well. And so like the whole company is just obsessed with like making people happy. And a lot of that comes from like years of dealing with dev tools and like years of like dealing with SaaSes in general and having those horrible experiences with certain companies and brands and being like, well, I'll never use them again. So like, I don't want that to ever happen to us. Like, I don't want someone to log in, sign up for Unkey, use Unkey once or twice, have a rough time, reach out, and then be like, oh, like the support I got was terrible. They clearly don't care about me. And then like, I'll tell 100 of my friends to never use this product. And then you're losing out on potentially 1 or 2 paying customers or 3 or 4 paying customers that you could have got from just that one interaction.
I guess one interesting aspect, because earlier we were talking about security and attacks and dealing with it, and you build this complex system, and then you're talking about how your entire commercial project is open source and what are some of the dynamics involved with that. Like, how do you balance that? Like, are there certain aspects that you're like, there's no way we can show this to the public, it'll just give up everything, and then there's other aspects where it's like, we're showing everything that we can?
Yeah, so like, how to explain this so that people understand. So there is this ever-arcing concern that people seem to have around being an open source, like commercially, in the sense that someone's going to steal your product and then like they're going to launch it themselves and then they're going to like proprietary and then they're going to make $1 billion. And it doesn't really happen like that. Like you have licensing and that kind of protects the open source project in the sense that like if someone was to steal Unkey today and try and fob it off as their own, and we knew that it was like, we could see that they potentially forked it or whatever it might be, and we figure out that they're using our source code, like we could go after them and then sue them and then blah 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 blah. But the entire Unkey company, everything is open source. There isn't a single hidden thing away somewhere in the deep depths of Unkey. Like everything is available. And the reason we did that was we kind of like wanted to show how a commercial product is built from the ground up. Like we were just 2 guys building a side project, right? And now we're a team of 6 right now. I had to do the math in my own head then. But like we're a team of 6 now. So like we want to show like what happens when you go from a team of 2 to a team of 6 to a team of 50 and show like how products are built from an idea. Like we had just an idea. We didn't have like a beginning, middle, and end. It's just an idea. And so we just like put everything possible out into the world. We show metrics. We show all sorts of data that some people are scared to show. Like, who cares? Like, it's not going to affect me as a person if you're like, oh, your company's not doing that great. But in my mind, if my company is helping one developer develop their API for the first time, it's doing fantastic. And so like we don't hide anything. And I think it's good. I think it's good for other people who maybe are aspiring entrepreneurs or just want to like leap into indie hacking, which, has got bad frame now, but like that small scale, I just want to build like an app that potentially I could make $5 a month from, but like it's that learning experience of building and building. Like that's kind of what we wanted to show with how Unkey has been built, and all the trials and tribulations around all that fun that comes with it.
That's kind of me right now. I'm building Event Convoy, and like that's been honestly a lot of fun. I don't know if I'll ever do anything, but I'm excited about it. So it's been fun from that aspect. I guess from obviously your journey and everything along that, any advice for any developers that are trying to become entrepreneurs? Or I know there are people listening to this that have either tried to build something and maybe they tried to take it to a path of monetization and never happened. Maybe they went the open source route as well. And, trying to monetize an open source project seems like one of the hardest challenges for a lot of individuals. Like any advice around that respect, or, even things that you've learned along this path?
Yeah, FYI, it's one of those things where you could probably try like 20 different apps and only one of them's going to hit. It's like that overnight success story, right? Where you've been grinding for 20 years and then suddenly you're an overnight success. It's the same thing. Like I built so many different side projects, so many different things. I did content creation. I built like monetizational like apps. I built like a an app that would allow you to take threads from Twitter when Twitter wasn't X and like turn those into blog posts, and it used like a bunch of different things, and like that didn't do anything. And like I built a bunch of different things and none of those really hit. So my advice is really like build something that you're passionate about. That's really the key thing, is like building something you're passionate about. Users will come, users will go, but like if you're passionate about building the next whatever it might be, and it helps you day to day, or potentially like it makes you feel good that you're trying to help these people, then that's all that it really matters. And everything's a learning experience, right? Like I'm a CEO now and I still have no idea what I'm doing. Like people are like, oh, you're CEO, you must know like all this. I'm like, every day's a learning experience. And it's the same in the dev community. It's like every day is a learning experience when you're building new apps, or you're trying a new piece of tech, or potentially, you know, you're trying to figure out how to monetize. Like all those things just come with time and experience. And I think everyone should at least build one thing that they kind of put out in the public and say like, hey, I built this cool thing. You never know what will happen, right? Like you never know if it's going to be a hit and people are like, wow, why didn't I think of that? Or it's going to be one of those things where, you know, people are impressed with the tech behind it. Maybe it's open source and they can look at it. It's just one of those things that I just think is important, that as a dev that you like just throw one thing out there and see how much your skills as a developer improves, whether that's like from, you know, soft skills to actual technical skills. But all of those things will change as you build that first thing in some aspect or another.
All right, everybody. That's a wrap from us. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you so much, James. You can find him at James_R_Perkins on Twitter and social media. You can find Adam Rackis at Adam Rackis, and you can find me at D Thompson Dev on all social media platforms as well. And before we want to say, I want to give one extra big thank you to This.Labs for sponsoring this episode. At This.Labs, we specialize in empowering businesses to reach their full potential through technology. We understand that in today's fast-paced tech environment, adaptability and efficiency are crucial. That's why we offer tailored solutions designed to meet your unique challenges and objectives. And our commitment to excellence and customer success sets us apart as a trusted advisor in the industry. To discover how This.Labs can transform your business, visit this.co to learn more about our services and how we can help you stay ahead of the competitive landscape. Thank you to This.Labs, and thank you so much for hanging out with us, y'all. And we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.